Number 1.
He was reported missing by his family in New Jersey. 4 days later, New York State Police found his abandoned car. Almost 20 years later, he's still missing. New York State Police issued a press release this week to let people know they are still investigating the case and inviting the public to help them solve it. On September 21, 1999, the Clifton Police Department in New Jersey received a report of a missing person, Hakan, a 28-year-old immigrant from Turkey. Karakay was suffering from depression and took medication for it, although he had stopped before he disappeared, according to the press release. His family told the police that he had left the home the day before in his silver 1989 Mazda 626 around 5 p.m. 4 days later they found his car after a report of a suspicious car located by someone's home on Wells Hill Road in Lewis, New York. No evidence was ever found if he drove the car to where it was finally located, and no signs of foul play were found there. An extensive ground search involving K-9 assets, New York State Forest Rangers and Environmental Conservation Police found nothing. In the years following, no information or evidence was found, either. Karakay was last seen wearing a gray, short-sleeved, collared shirt, khaki pants and black dress shoes. At the time of his disappearance, Karakay did not have a wife or girlfriend and spent his days reading Turkish newspapers and visiting friends and relatives. His case remains unsolved. Anyone with information is asked to call the New York State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation in Lewis at 518-873-2750.
Number 2.
Jesse was last seen in South River, New Jersey on January 20, 1998. He has never been heard from again. He may be with his non-custodial mother, Christina Mitchell. A felony warrant was issued for her on January 21, 2000. A photo of Mitchell is posted with this case summary. Her date of birth is June 19, 1971, making her 26 years old at the time of Jesse's abduction. She's described as Caucasian, 5'7" and 120 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. Mitchell may walk with a slight limp, and she may dye her hair another color. She may use the aliases Tammy White and/or Christina Ryan. Jesse's father, Ronnie Kaslov, is of Romani ethnicity, also known as Gypsy, and obtained a divorce from Mitchell under Romani law. While they were fighting over custody of Jesse, Ronnie was allowed supervised visits for 2 hours a week. Mitchell and her parents fled with Jesse before the custody issue could be resolved. Ronnie has accused police of not properly investigating Jesse's abduction because the family is Romani. Authorities stated that they have tried to find Jesse, but the Romani lifestyle made the search difficult. American Romani are an insular group who typically withdraw their children from school after the 8th grade and do not have birth certificates or bank accounts, and they are not counted in most censuses. Ronnie and Christina married in a Romani ceremony, but they were never legally married under American civil law, and authorities have questioned Jesse's paternity. Investigators stated they questioned Mitchell's family members, and all of them claimed they had not heard from her or Jesse. Jesse and Mitchell are probably using alias names. They may be in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. The child's case remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Kawash was last seen at her home in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey on July 4, 1982. Her husband didn't see her himself, but he heard her call her daughter into her room at 8 a.m. At 8:30 a.m., Kawash's husband and their daughter left, leaving Kawash at home. Her gold 1977 Datsun 280Z, which had the vehicle identification number GHLS 30065266 and the New Jersey license plate number 338 GIY, was parked in the garage at the time. When Kawash's husband returned at 11:30 p.m., his wife and her car were gone, although she'd left recently laundered clothes behind and left the refrigerator full of food. She has never been heard from again, and her vehicle has not been located. A photo of it is posted with this case summary. Her husband reported her missing on July 7. Kawash had filed for divorce in January 1981. She and her husband were still living in the same house, but lead largely separate lives and were seeing other people. By the time Kawash went missing, the divorce was nearly finalized. She and her husband had agreed on a financial settlement, and she was going to receive more than $250,000. Kawash was looking forward to her new life. She was seeing a Norwegian man and planned to move to Norway with her 10-year-old daughter and get married again. Her husband, however, planned to challenge her in court if she tried to take their daughter out of the country. The child custody hearing was scheduled for about a month after Kawash disappeared. In late March 1983, 9 months after her disappearance, Kawash's divorce was finalized and she was given custody of her daughter, in spite of being missing. There is no indication that Kawash traveled to Norway after her disappearance, and her passport was left behind. She is the oldest of 8 children and is described as a responsible individual and a devoted mother. She worked as a beautician, and her hobbies in 1982 included antique collecting and designing and sewing Victorian-style clothing. She often wore heavy makeup and clothes that would range in style from Victorian era to punk. The circumstances of her disappearance are unclear, but Kawash's loved ones never thought she would have left of her own accord without telling anyone. Her case remains unsolved.
Number 4.
Kearney was last seen in Pitman, New Jersey on June 15, 2012. She was staying with her grandmother at the time. Kearney walked into the residence that day and saw her grandmother on the phone, talking about her. She turned and walked out and has never been heard from again. Her mother reported her missing on September 4. Inside Uravik's borough home, her granddaughter Lily, 3, is running around and playing with her toys. There are pictures hanging on the walls, including one of her daughter, Caitlin Kearney, smiling in her Paul VI high school senior portrait. It seems like a normal day, but to Uravik, it's a difficult time. Kearney went missing 2.5 years ago, leaving behind her infant daughter. Last week, days before Kearney's 23rd birthday, the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office re-released information about Kearney, hoping it may lead them to her. Kearney was living with her grandmother before she disappeared in 2012. One day in June, when Kearney entered the home, she heard her grandmother, who was clearly upset, speaking to someone on the phone, Uravik said. They were talking about Caitlin. Caitlin just turned around and walked out, Uravik said. No one had heard from her that day. Kearney was reported missing on September 4, 2012, but she had left her family long before then. When she first left, I had heard there were sightings of her, Uravik said. I knew she was okay. I reported her missing when the information stopped coming in. She said Kearney was seen in Camden and had run-ins with the law. Uravik had received notices in the mail about her daughter failing to appear in court. And then the information stopped coming, Uravik said. Uravik said she's driven around Camden to try and find her daughter, but hasn't had any luck. Pitman Police Department and the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office have investigated the case, and family and police officers have been on the lookout for the 22-year-old. Uravik said Kearney was planning to apply to school to study nursing before she disappeared, but she had a drug problem and wasn't ready to get help. My relationship with Caitlin was normal until I started to notice changes in her behavior, Uravik said. It had become apparent that she was involved with drugs. Uravik said all the leads the police found ended up cold. What is really frightening was at one point we were told that she could have been held against her will, Uravik said. But we never were able to find out if that was true or not. Detective Bryn Wilden said the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office investigation was unable to substantiate any claim that Caitlin had been held against her will. Wilden said they would not comment on anything specific if Kearney had been in trouble. Kearney's 23rd birthday was Thursday, and right now is one of the hardest times for the entire family, Uravik said, but she is trying to remain positive. I'm still holding on to hope that we'll find Caitlin, Uravik said. My salvation is my granddaughter, who I'm taking care of. We're doing okay, and of course I constantly think of her and worry about her. But I have to be okay for my granddaughter. Uravik hopes Kearney is able to hear or read about how her entire family has been looking for her. If Caitlin should read this, she should know her entire family wants her back home, Uravik said. Kearney is about 5 feet tall and weighs 110 pounds. She has brown hair and brown eyes and a tattoo of a strawberry on her lower left abdomen. We encourage anyone who has information or knowledge to give us insight to her whereabouts, said Pitman Police Chief Bob Zimmerman. Anything that's out there is a huge step in the right direction. Anyone with information can call the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office or Pitman Police Department.
Number 5.
Krummel was last seen leaving residence on Hadley Drive in Medford, New Jersey on January 23, 1991. She said she would back in time for dinner, but she never returned and has never been heard from again. Her husband reported her missing at 9:30 p.m. The next day, Krummel's car was parked at the Pinelands Library on South Main Street, 5 miles from her home. There were no indications of foul play at the scene. Krummel's keys, identification, purse, credit cards, money, watch and wedding ring were left inside the vehicle, along with a note she wrote. In her note, Krummel said she loved her family, but she couldn't go on, and she was sorry. Search dogs tracked her scent to a nearby lake. Police theorized Krummel committed suicide but couldn't locate her body after an extensive search, and Krummel's sister said she didn't believe she would have drowned herself because she knew how to swim and didn't like to get dirty. Another possibility is that she left of her own accord to spare her family from having to watch her die slowly from her Huntington's disease. She had witnessed several family members, including her mother, die of the illness. After she went missing, Krummel's family moved to Long Island, New York. She hasn't used her credit cards or bank accounts since her disappearance. Authorities are unsure what happened to her, but they don't suspect foul play was involved in her disappearance. Her case remains unsolved.
Number 6.
Lamanna resided in Fresh Meadows, New York in 1994 and was studying nuclear medicine technology. She was found walking the streets of the New York City borough of Queens in an incoherent state on January 8, 1994, and was taken to Queens Center Psychiatric Hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. Lamanna was taken to her sister's home in the 2500 block of Wesley Avenue in Ocean City, New Jersey, after her discharge later that day, and they had dinner. She suddenly ran from the house at approximately 7 p.m. that evening. She was carrying her navy blue bathrobe with her at the time. The outside temperature was below freezing. Lamanna was last seen inside the waterfront bar in Somers Point, New Jersey at approximately 9 p.m. She has never been heard from again. Her bathrobe was discovered 2 blocks from the establishment shortly afterwards. A sheriff's department bloodhound traced Lamanna's scent between 2 homes on Central Avenue in Ocean City, but there was no other evidence of her at the scene. She may have hitchhiked out of the area. There were sightings of Lamanna in New Jersey in May 1995 and in New York in December 1995. Between 2014 and 2016 there were reported sightings of a woman resembling Lamanna in Virginia and North Carolina. She was hitchhiking, had maps of several different states, and told people she was looking for her family. The woman was located in Florida in January 2016. She was not Lamanna. According to Lamanna's sister, she graduated from the University of Scranton and volunteered with the Peace Corps in Morocco. She dated an Afghan immigrant taxi driver for 10 years, and her mental breakdown the day of her disappearance was precipitated by the end of that relationship. Her sister stated Lamanna was suffering from anorexia as well as anxiety at the time. Some agencies state that Lamanna vanished from Ocean City, New Jersey.
Number 7.
Madsen was last seen in the South Seaside Park area of Berkeley Township, New Jersey on June 25, 2009. She and her husband of 50 years normally reside in Clifton, New Jersey, but they were staying at their summer home in Berkeley Township when she disappeared. At 7 p.m., Madsen told her husband she was going for a short walk on the beach, which was about 15 yards from their home. She never returned and has never been heard from again. Her family reported her missing at 8 p.m. An extensive search of the area turned up no sign of her. No witnesses reported seeing her on the beach that evening, and her family stated she disliked swimming and wouldn't have gone into the water. Madsen left behind her keys, money, and identification when she disappeared. Although her Alzheimer's disease was worsening, her family stated she knew who she was still able to drive, and had never gotten lost before. Her case remains unsolved.